Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the WDBJ7 Plus Digital News Desk. My name is Leanna Scachetti. So excited to have you guys joining us here this Tuesday morning, bright and early, with y'all to talk about Virginia's acorn harvest. Of course, it's fall and definitely looks like a fall day over downtown Roanoke today. A lot of clouds, a little bit of drizzle this morning. Maybe it's a pumpkin spice latte kind of day. It's fall for you. But it also means that we have acorns on the ground. And Virginia's Department of Forestry says there's actually something you can do with those acorns. So we're going to talk about it today. We invite you to join in the conversation. We have Arasando watching. We have Mimi watching from Collinsville. Let us know where you're watching from. And let us know if you have any questions for our guest. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce him. Joining me now from Augusta County is Joshua McLaughlin, Nursery Manager at the Augusta Nursery with the Virginia Department of Forestry. Joshua, good morning to you.
Good morning, Leanne.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I see acorns all the time, and I never think that there's something that I might be able to do with them apart from maybe just a craft or something like that. But they're actually an important part of your work at the Augusta Nursery. So tell us, why does the Department of Forestry collect acorns?
That is a very good thing. I mean, acorns for us, we actually take those acorns here and actually grow trees out of them. So, not a lot of people realize that is the seed of an oak tree. And so we collect those here, plant them here, and we end up having a good amount of, yeah, you can see that picture on the screen right there, how they fall down there. Eventually, that acorn will root itself in the ground and grow a tree in the woods. But for our standpoint, we actually will take them here and we'll bring those acorns and float them in water. Good ones will sink, bad ones will float, and then we'll outplant them like the pictures you see right there.
That is fascinating. So we're looking at the nursery there in Augusta, starting from the seed of the oak tree, sorting through them. And what do you all do with the trees that you plant at the nursery?
All right, that we plant everything in the fall. So here in about a few weeks, we'll start putting acorns in the ground, and then that will be next year's crop. And so, like for this year, starting October 2nd, we actually have our online store starting our seedling sale season, and we sell seedlings to the public. We're not in it to make a lot of money. Seedlings are very inexpensive. We're looking at, I mean, seedlings anywhere from $3 to 30 cents a piece. Depends how many you buy. The more you buy, the cheaper they get. But anybody can buy from us. Our webpage is buyvatrees.com. And again, that starts Monday, October 2nd at 8 o'clock in the morning.
How long does it take for an acorn to transform into a seedling at the point that you would sell it?
All right. The picture you showed there of those trees were actually 1 year old trees. And we will sell everything we have at 1 year old. So what we plant this fall will actually germinate in the spring, like April to May, start poking through the ground. We'll fertilize them, we'll take care of them, we'll weed them, and then we'll grow them to that height. And then when that height, once the sales start, we'll start shipping out mid-February to middle of to the end of April. So everything's like a 1 year cycle.
If you're just now joining us here on the WDBJ7 Plus Digital News Desk, we're talking about acorns. It is acorn season. The Virginia Department of Forestry is collecting your acorns to grow into seedlings that they sell through their Augusta nursery. Here's a couple pictures of some of those plants that they grow at the nursery. We have William watching from Martinsville. Thanks for chiming in, William. And Joshua, a question for you. You had mentioned that the seedlings are relatively inexpensive, so people can get a lot. Do you typically have people who are just private landowners who want a tree maybe for the backyard, or businesses as well, all kinds, or more one
And
over the other?
it's a major mixture. I mean, between the one landowner that wants 5 redbud trees for their yard, to the deer hunter wanting some persimmon trees or some oak trees to plant at their place where they deer hunt, to reforestation companies that are planting millions of pine trees for to eventually be cut down for lumber later. So I mean, we have a big array of customers there, and so we want to try to keep everybody happy. That is the main goal.
So we'll talk about collecting in just a minute, but I want to talk about this program by which you all invite the public to bring their acorns to you. Tell me a little bit about the program and its participation over the last couple of years.
This program has really ramped up over the last few years. I mean, when we first did it probably 10, 12 years ago, it was something where you had a few people bring us acorns and we get a few of them in the mail or get them shipped to us. And last year was just remarkable. The amount of acorns that people were donated, brought to their DOF office and came to the nursery was outstanding. Last year was a very good acorn year as well. But I mean, this process is turn into something fun. I mean, it's a good educational avenue for groups like scouts and and church groups, and I mean, it's just a good avenue for education to teach more people about trees, to let them know what they're doing is actually donating those acorns to the Department of Forestry actually will eventually have another tree to be able to plant.
So let's talk about collecting. Any tips or tricks, and is there any certain type of acorn that you're looking for?
I mean, the main thing that I sit there and say is if you find an acorn, look to see what type of tree it's coming off of. And we don't want acorns that are mixing with each other. So if you like white oak and chestnut oak are very similar. If you're looking at that picture, they're both white oak species. And so those acorns tend to look very similar when they're laying on the ground without that cap. And so check your trees by looking at the bark on those trees to know what's what. Look at the leaves, look at the bark, try to figure out what's there. If as long as things aren't mixing, then that's good for us. I mean, we don't want to be able to outplant a bunch of white oak and have some chestnut oak mixed in it, and somebody orders white oak seedlings and they say, "Wait a second, you sent me the wrong thing." We're trying to avoid that as much as possible. Um, but I mean, the main thing we want to educate is when you collect, put the acorns in a breathable sack, preferably like a paper bag. I always tell people, I said, if you're a Trader Joe's shopper, they always have paper bags at Trader Joe's, and we get a lot of Trader Joe's paper bags full of acorns here at the nursery. So I mean, if you put it in that and drop it off at your local DOF office is the best thing that you can do.
So that's good news. You don't even have to go all the way to Augusta County if you're
Nope.
not near Augusta County in order to get it to you.
Correct. If you go to the Department of Forestry website, it's at dof.virginia.gov. They're on the front page is a thing called the Find the Forester. You click on that and click which county or city you're at, and it'll tell you where your local office is and give you that person's name and phone number. And so if you can't get to that office, you can call them and then they'll tell you which one's the closest office. Because some work areas or districts are a little bit, you might be closer to one district office more than the other. So I know the regional office for the Western region is actually in Salem. So it's just right there outside of Roanoke in the city of Salem. So that's a very good spot to drop off.
Good to know. We have Mimi chiming in who said, "My neighbor has a yard full. I need to donate." Just make sure you get permission from your neighbor before you do that, Mimi. We
Correct.
also make sure you're okay to be picking up the acorns where you are. We did have a question from William, or rather a comment, who says that he's in Martinsville and he hasn't noticed, or he said, "I have noticed the trees in my area have no acorns this year. Do they seem to come at a certain time, or are there certain variabilities in the season that may affect how many acorns a tree produces?"
Yes, actually, here where I'm at in Augusta County, we do not have a lot of white oak and chestnut oak acorns here. And I contribute that back to the fact that white oak species tend to flower every spring and then produce an acorn for the fall. So if there was a chance that a frost event hit when that tree was flowering, you're not going to get any, you're just not going to get an acorn to form. Red oak species will flower this spring and then you'll get an acorn not that fall, but the next fall. So the event of him not having any acorns down there in Martinsville has to do probably the fact of when those trees were flowering, you just had a frost. Same way with like the peach crop, like the years they talk about the not a good peach tree or a peach year, and that's because a lot of them get hit by the frost. So, and the drought we had here in Virginia this year, especially Augusta County, played a favor in it because those trees will just get to a point they might have those acorns and then they realize they can't develop, so they just drop them early. And when they drop them early, the embryos are not intact in them, so they're not going to germinate and grow a tree.
That's fascinating. Good observation, William, because that is a good question. That's a good thing to know. Mimi did clarify her neighbor does approve of her collecting the acorns, so
That's
that's good
awesome.
to know. My guest today is Joshua McLaughlin, who is a nursery manager in Augusta County for the Department of Forestry Nursery there, where they are growing the acorns that you collect into seedlings for the public to buy. Joshua, I just want to know, what's it like to have a program where you are able to interact so closely with members of the public, and where it's something that, people that we can participate in? What's that like for you and your department?
Mm, I really enjoy it because the whole educational aspect is where I want things to be. Uh, I mean, the nurseries here in Virginia are 100% self-supporting. So the educational aspect that we are here, this is what trees do. Trees are very important. They're very important for the environment. And just let people know also that this nursery exists, that they can buy trees from us. There's people that live within 10 miles of this nursery that don't even know what we do, that don't even know that they can even buy a tree from us. Some people just think we grow trees to plant in national parks or state forest or the national forest. But I mean, from my aspect, every year it kind of gets bigger and bigger, and the public ends up getting more excited about it. And that makes me more excited too, just to see people getting more involved with wanting to plant trees and do well.
So, when people come and buy the seedlings, do you have any recommendations for them to kind of ensure the health and growth of their seedling? Any tips for planting and nurturing that seedling?
I mean, the main thing is we want to make sure you plant that tree when it's in dormancy. So once the leaves fall off that seedling is the best time to plant. That's why we do our seedling sales in October to make sure people get the trees for them to have shipped to them and or pick up from us mid-February to the end of April. And I mean, the main thing is if you have the ability to water them and baby them, by golly, do it. But I know that's hard at all sometimes. Sometimes you're planting a lot more trees and you don't have that ability to do that. So being able to plant March and February, March, April also helps those seedlings get that spring weather, that spring rains that we get before it gets too hot outside, and then you end up having issues with growth then.
So, this season, are you hoping to collect a certain number of acorns or try and hit a certain amount of acorns from a certain type of tree?
Yeah, every year I have goals that I want us to collect, the public to collect, and what we're going to plant. And so this year it is pretty steep goals. We've been trying to expand this nursery a little bit more because the demand of seedlings keeps going up. And so, for example, like white oak, uh, my goal this year is to plant 4 tons of acorns. So, 4 tons of white oak acorns. So that's 8,000 pounds. I mean, chestnut oak, for example, we're looking at planting maybe 2,000 pounds. Northern red, about 3,000 pounds. Black oak, pin oak, about 1,000 pounds of each one of those. And willow oak will plant between 500 and 600 pounds of that. So that following there on that screen. But I mean, that's a lot of acorns. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of pounds. I mean, black walnut's one we also plant, and that one we actually plant by hand. And we plant probably, I think last year we planted close to maybe 7 or 8 tons of walnuts. And it's a process.
That is a lot of acorns. So, hopefully, the public can come through and help participate. Joshua, before we let you go, anything else that you'd like to add? Anything else that you'd like to let people know?
I mean, the main thing is we are 100% self-supporting. So any help that somebody can give is great. If you can only pick a sandwich bag full of acorns, they get back to this facility, we're going to clean them. We're going to soak them in water. If they're good and they sink, they will be planted. And that's what I want to let people know is if you collect a sandwich bag full or you collect a pickup truck full, we'll take them and we'll treat them well.
My guest today has been Joshua McLaughlin, nursery manager at the Augusta Nursery, run by the Virginia Department of Forestry, talking about this year's acorn harvest and how you can participate. Joshua, thank you so much for being with us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for this opportunity.
And all that information that we have mentioned is in a link in our Facebook Live right now. I'll be sure that I put that on our website too, so you guys can get that information. Again, showing you how you can participate in this year's acorn harvest with some tips and tricks on what kinds of acorns they're looking for and how you can collect them properly to help them out. As a reminder, if you have any questions for us here on the Digital News Desk, something you would like to share with us or see us cover, Go to WDBJ7 Plus at WDBJ7.com. We'd love to hear from you. Just a couple more comments coming in. Mimi says, thank you, Joshua, for what you are doing. Catherine says she has some that she'd be glad to donate, wants to know the address. Great question, Catherine. What you're going to do is contact your local Department of Forestry office. I'll put a link in the comments to let you know where you can find that so they can get it to the Augusta Nursery for you. Again, thank you all so much for being with us today. We'll see you later.